Welcome to the OpenDS channel. My name is Raphael Matt, and this video tutorial is about how to export CityEngine models to OpenDS. So, in this video tutorial, we want to address a lot of questions raised by our users. How can I create a 3D model that I can use it in OpenDS? So, we had a lot of requests, and therefore we decided to have this video tutorial in order to give you detailed explanation on the toolchain and on the how-to-dos for exporting. So let's start with a CityEngine model. As obviously you can see here, we prepared a smart model. It's a very small street model. We have some buildings here and we have some trees. We want to export. The modeling is finished. We have some meadows over there and a lot of trees. And as soon as you are ready to export, you should make sure that you have finalized your model, that there are no gaps between the buildings, everything is in place, because the exporting is a little more steps you would have to do, and when you find a fault afterwards, you would have to repeat the whole export steps again. You also should consider whether you want to have so many polygons in, because especially these trees will produce a high workload for real-time simulation, and therefore you should think of reducing the number of polygons. Okay, but at that point you are ready for export. You have several choices of how to do it. The first choice would be to use the CityEngine exporter. This is a script provided by us for our Pro customers, which is a one-click script that could be started from within CityEngine and produces a file in the target format of the simulator that could be used for driving. However, we know that there are some issues with larger models, or let's say more complex models. Therefore, I'm going to show a more safe approach today, where we have a higher probability of success. This can be done with all the free versions of OpenDS, so we only use free software here for the conversion, and we show how to do it with that. We will especially use Blender with the importers and exporter plugins to have our model ready for OpenDS in the Augur XML target format. So, in order to start, we have to select what we want to export from our model. So here we select everything, including the trees, even if they are very complex, but we might have the chance to remove them later on. After you have selected everything you want to export, you can go to File and select Export Models. Now you have different formats you can choose from. We want to export it to the wavefront OBJ. So others might also be working, but our preferred way is to use the OBJ. After that, click Next, and specify where you want to store your export. I prepare the folder where to store this data. Okay, and then you can choose a more reasonable name for your city or your export. Let's call it city. The other settings keep untouched. Just export as it is and click Finish. Now the generation might take a while in the data folder, the OBJ subfolder, files will be generated. So yeah, here's already the first OBJ file. So the textures will follow now, and you see in the background the export has finished. Okay, let's have a look at the folder. Here we have all the facades of our buildings. We have the tree, the bushes, and the most important one is the OBJ file here and the related material file over there. So the rest of the files is textures. So in the OBJ file we have all the polygons of our whole scenery. The material file is the assignment of the textures to the object. So what we do next is we need to convert the OBJ format to the target format, which is the Ogre XML. For this we use Blender. So as you might have a newer version of Blender which looks like that, I would have to say that we recommend not to use one of the newer Blender versions. So we close this again. We know that there are exporters for newer versions, but they are error prone, and thus we decided to show the tutorial with our safe approach, Blender version 2.49b. So if you don't have it on your computer installed, you can go to blender.org and download it there. So the newest version is currently 2.76b, but we use an older exporter which requires an older version. So I'll click on this list, and then we download Blender 2.49b, which is actually from September 2009. Here you can specify what operating system you want to use. You can choose your installer from here and download it and install Blender. After you have done this, you can open it, and yeah, Blender 2.49 looks like that. Yeah, every time you start it, there's this box in the center which is not part of our model, and we don't want to have it in, so I press the delete key and remove it from the scene. Okay, first thing we have to do, we have to open the OBJ file we just created with Blender. So we don't use open here. Instead of this, we go to import and we select the wavefront OBJ from here. Now we go to the exact path where we stored it. This was at data OBJ, and we look out for the city_0 OBJ file. So after I've selected this one, I click here on import wavefront OBJ. I will be asked for some settings, and the most important one is to separate the objects by material. These can be unchecked, and I disable that here. After that, I click to import, which will again take a little while. The whole scene will now be imported to Blender. and there it is. I can use the scroll wheel to zoom out, and you can see it's again what we had before. So all the buildings, streets, and the trees here. So from here we want to export it again to the target format, which is the Ogre XML. So as you can see here, exporter is missing. We have in our default installation of Blender, we have no exporter for Ogre XML. So what we need to do next is to install this exporter. For that reason, I save my model as blend file, that I can reuse it later on. So I save it as city.blend and close blending. So in my data folder, you see there's now city blend, one single file, which represents exactly the same as here in the OBJ folder, where we have one file for the model and a lot of textures. So the textures are included in the blend file. Okay, so let's go to the Blender exporter for Ogre. This is the website where you get some information about this exporter. There's also a download link. You can just click the link in this video now to get to the Blender exporter. And then there's also a scene exporter. We will need both of them. Here is the information for the scene exporter. Also a download link available in the video that you can click. So this will lead you to the download pages. So the one is this here, the Blender exporter. I just download it to my data folder. And the other one is the scene plugin, which you can download from this site. So I can click to download this file here. Again to my data folder. So what we downloaded now is this zip archive and the Ogre.c Python script. So let's extract this here. Those two have been created, and the one I've downloaded and the other one has also been created from the archive. So these four files, these two files and these two folders are needed for the export, and in order to use them with Blender, you have to copy them to the Blender plugin folder. So we go there. It usually can be found here under users, your user folder, app data, roaming, Blender Foundation, Blender.blender scripts. So on other operating systems different from Microsoft Windows, this location might be at a different place. You can look this up, the Blender manual, and copy the files there. So I cut them and I paste them here. So you see the files are now in the scripts folder. After that, I restart Blender, and you see now there's an exporter called Ogre Meshes and Ogre Scene. So better I start Blender directly with my city. So here we begin with my city, and now I can use the exporter to export everything I have selected to to Ochre XML. So let's start with the meshes. Let's first create a new folder called Ochre, because this is my target folder where I want to export the city to. So you can specify the target folder here, and you can specify the name of the material file. So remember the name you specified here, because you need to use exactly the same name for the scene file, and tick copy textures, which is quite important. So then there is no more to do than to click export. This might again take a while, because all the objects are now stored as separate XML files. So we can take a look in the Ochre folder. You see new mesh XML files will be generated. Well, the larger the files are, the longer it will take. Yeah, while this is done, I want to make you aware that you need to have Python installed, which is quite important, as these exporters require Python to be installed. So best would be to have a look at this box here, which will be opened when you open Blender, and there you find what Python version was used to compile Blender with. So this is 2.6.2, and you can go to the Python homepage, where here it is. You can go to python.org, downloads, and there you find a big list of all the releases. So you can just search for 2.6.2 and download this. So before you run the exporter, make sure that Python is installed. If it's not installed, download the right version from here and install it first. Okay, in the meanwhile, the exporter finished. You see as last step, all the textures have been copied. So this looks quite good. Click OK and click quit from the meshes exporter. Now we're halfway through. We go again to export. Now we select the scene exporter. As everything we want to export is already selected, don't change anything here. Just go to where we want to store it. So we go to Data, Ochre, Export, and now remember the name you placed for the material file and reuse this for the scene file. So the material file and the scene file need to have exactly the same name. After you have specified the name here, just click Export. So this is rather fast, as only one file will be generated. So we click OK and quit. Now we can have a look at the Ochre folder. So this is exactly the same model we had before as OBJ and as blend file, but this is the same scenario in the Ochre format. Again, we have a lot of textures, you see trees and facades of the buildings. Now we have again a material file, which is the assignment of the textures to the model, and we have the scene file here, which is only a list of the parts of the meshes of the model, which are shown here as all these XML files. So all these files together are our model. Great. The last step that needs to be done is to add this model to OpenDS. In order to do that, you can go to our homepage, opends.de, and download OpenDS 3.5, which is actually the latest version. You can go to OpenDS, download OpenDS 3.5. You have to check the box here to agree to the license, and then you can start to download, which is about 400 megabytes. I will skip this as I already downloaded the latest version to this folder. Okay, then we take the Esri model. I copy this from here to our assets scenes folder. So you see these are the other models that are already included in the latest download, and I copy our folder here. I just give it a better name. Let's call it city, as we have the same name for the scene file inside. So then we go to driving task projects, and we just take one from the existing ones. Let's take Paris, and we copy this and name it city. Inside we edit the scene.xml file because this contains the path to the car that's driving, to the model that we are using, and an underlying plane, so that we cannot fall off the model if we are going over the edge. The first entry is the crash plane. Here we have the car, and this is the old model from the previous scene. We change the path here as we have the new city at that location. So we save it, and we can start OpenDS now. Maybe we are lucky and we can immediately drive on our map. Otherwise, we might find a good point where to start. Let's have a look around. No model there. Okay, then some error might have occurred. As you can see here, there's no city in the map model list. There's only the sky map and the crash plane, which is not that good. The issue is and there it is. So this is now the model that we exported to OpenXML, and it's inside the simulator. Well, there are some issues still remaining, as you can see. For example, the texture in front of the car, as is red and white spots. So this obviously means there's the texture has not been found here. Especially in the use of CityEngine, this is a result of the naming of the texture files. So I show you how to remove that and to solve the issues about the textures. In order to do that, we close the simulator again and have a look at the scene file here. And the problem obviously is that we have empty spaces here in some of the file names, which is not accepted by the exporter. So we have a look in the material file. You see the exporter inserts underscores, replaces all the spaces with underscores. So the thing we would have to do here is to replace the spaces in our texture names also with underscores. So if you have checked all the textures, if there are no more spaces, replace all the spaces here with underscores. After that, we can restart the simulator and then the textures should show up correctly. So these were already all the textures. Let's restart the simulator. And the textures are there. That issue is solved. Now I want to get closer to the map. You can see there's a problem with the correct height of the buildings. You can drive under them. As they're placed slightly too high. So this is an issue that needs to be solved in the CityEngine before you export your model. So let's assume we have corrected this. We can go to the point where we want to start. By the way, you see that the model is obviously too small for our car. So what we could do also is to rescale the model, as the road is too small here. And further issues are that objects seem to be missing, as the trees don't have leaves. But when I switch to the physics, the leaves obviously seem to be there. So they are invisible, as well as the lower half of the buildings. So what we need to do next is to make these things that are invisible now visible. For that purpose, we also again close the simulator and we go to the assets file where we have the scene, and we take a look into the material file. So this texture seems to be the problem, as the leaves are invisible. That means we search for this texture and exactly, here's the problem. as these seem to be invisible, we set these 4 values from 0 to 1. There are even further ones you have to set to 1, because 0 means that these objects are invisible. So it's quite a lot you would have to check here. Setting everything to 1 here will make objects visible again. So this happens sometimes when you export models, that there are transparency issues. Okay, after spending several minutes setting a lot of zeros to 1, we start over the simulator again. And hopefully the invisible objects now are visible. Yes, now the buildings are closed. And the lower parts are no longer missing. We can again drive to the other side where we had our trees and see if the leaves are now there. Yes, here we have now leaves at the trees. Yeah, there's some issues with semi-transparent textures, but it looks quite nice. Okay, now the thing that I feared has occurred. The frame rate is very, very low, as there's too many triangles produced by all the leaves. So what we could do next is remove the trees. For this, we again close the simulator and have a look at the scenes, and what are the big files. Here, yeah. So bark mesh is a rather big file. So it would maybe a good idea to remove this. And this here also is a rather big file here. Let's take a look. Oh, look at these. Trees are probably producing a lot of polygons, so we should remove those. So all the trees are called billboard. So this makes it easy to find them when removing them. And the leaves is ash. So all the images containing billboard or ash is what we are now going to remove. So we first take a look at the material file again, and I search for ash. So this is the foliage leaf card, and create fan 8 material and bark. Then I open the scene file also in my editor, and I search for bark and uncomment it. create fan 8 and CityEngine materials foliage leaf card. And everything which contains billboard is what I wanted to remove. All the textures billboard is fan 7, 8, 1, 3. So let's assume it's all fan, all create fan things. Yes. So let's just uncomment everything which contains this string from our C file. Okay, I think we got everything now. Now all the trees are commented out from our scene, so they are still there, but the simulator will not load them. Then we restart it, and hopefully everything works. Then we should get back to our scene without the trees, without a leaf, and a lot of higher frame rate. Yeah, you now can see that frame rate is 60 frames per second. We go back to the center of the model where you can see whether the trees are still there, but obviously they disappeared as we removed them. Yes. So the next step is that the model is too small, so we might want to enlarge it. Let's take a look at our car, which is quite big for this. So as you can see here, the lines on the street are very blurry. So this is also something that could be changed in the material file. We will have to find what texture is applied here, and we can then apply filters. So I'll show you how to do this. Then we go back to the material file, and every part that belongs to the road, so this is what we can find in here. we just look out for textures that have markers, so exactly this one, satellite stripes for example, or single white line, or double line. So they all start with center line. And lane, so we have here part of the lane, here part of the lane. So we now search for all the materials which have a lane or this centerline texture, and add this filter here, max anisotropy filter. So you can choose some power of 2 here. So I choose 16 as this is the maximum on my machine, which is working. Now the lanes are through. And we have the center lines. And we have through the center lines. So then let's get back to the driving task project. By the way, we could rename this here as well. And we go to the city scene again. You see the scale is a little bit too low, so we choose a higher value here and reload again. Now something has happened. What could happen if we do not take care about that? We are inside the building now. As this is the initial spawning point, in order to avoid this, we could use Blender to set our initial position. So let's just do that. We can use Blender, and now we want to start at the center here. For example, we could add a new object. Add a cube here. And we can move this cube to the position where we want to have it. We can open the transform properties and note the location where we placed the cube. So in this case it's rather simple. It's on minus 153 on the x value and 00 for y and z. Okay, by knowing this, we can go back to our scene.xml and change the position of the driving car. So this was the previous position, and by knowing that the coordinate system of the game engine is rotated by 90 degrees compared to the Blender coordinate system, we apply these values here and restart the simulation. And as you can see, we are now at the position we located in Blender. The model is now much bigger. Maybe it's too big already, as the car is too small now. So the truth is somewhere in between, maybe a scaling factor of 0.6. But you can see the lines on the road are not that blurry any longer. So we have a good sight to the distance. What you could also do to apply this filter to the facades. As you see, the facades are getting blurry in the back. But these are the major things you have to take care about when exporting a 3D model to the Ogre XML format. So in order to wrap up, what did we learn today? I showed you how you can export your models from CityEngine. So this can be done using the OBJ exporter of CityEngine. This again could be opened with Blender. However, you have to take care to use Blender in the old version 2.49b. You have to install Python in the same version as your Blender version has been compiled. You have to download the ogre.scene exporter and the ogre meshes exporter. You have to copy both of them into the Blender plugin folder where all the scripts are located. After that, you can open Blender, import the OBJ file from the CityEngine, and export the Ogre to the Ogre format. So namely the scene and the meshes exporter. After you have exported your model to Ogre XML, you can copy this to the scenes folder of OpenDS. You have to copy an existing project, change the path to your scene in the scene XML file, and after that you can start OpenDS with your model for the first time. So as we have seen today, there might be some difficulties with the textures, as you might have spaces in the path. So you have to replace all the spaces by underscores. Then the textures should be in place. After that, I showed you how to scale the city to make it a little bit bigger, how to remove blurry lines, blurry center lines, and how to remove transparent objects, as we had at the beginning, invisible leaves and the lower parts of the buildings. So we changed the invisibility and made the objects visible. After that, we found out that the lot of polygons of the trees are reducing the performance of the simulation and slowing down everything. Therefore, we also removed the trees. And this is the result. I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial, and I would be glad to have you here in the next tutorial. Goodbye.